listeners. Welcome back to Midnight FM, the voice that keeps you company when the world has gone silent. I'm your host, Jacob, speaking to all of you who dare to stay awake at this lonely hour. Tonight, we're joined again by a guest who has already chilled our bones with his stories, Grandpa Joseph. He is a man whose life has been brushed more than once by the kind of darkness that most of us would rather not imagine. And tonight, he's here with a tale that has haunted him for nearly 60 decades. It is not just a memory, it's a curse, one that followed him from the wild woods of Kentucky. Listeners, settle in, because once you hear it, you may find yourself glancing out the window, wondering if something is waiting for you in the mist. Grandpa Joseph, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Jacob, and good evening to those listening. I don't usually like to revisit this story, but it's been carved into me like the rings of an old tree. I was 15 years old, summer of 1962. I grew up in a small town in Kentucky, nothing special, just farms, gravel roads, and thick stretches of woods that seemed to go on forever. People there like to talk. Folk tales, old warnings, stories passed from one generation to the next. And one of those tales was about the Lantern Man. My father used to warn me, Joseph, if you ever see a lantern light moving through the trees at night, don't follow it. It's not a traveler. It's not a man. It's death itself, luring you away. I always thought he said it just to keep me from wandering too far from home. But one night, I learned the truth. It was late July, the air hot and heavy with cicadas buzzing. I was out with 3 of my friends, Eddie, Mark, and my younger cousin, Samuel. We weren't supposed to be out that late, but boys will be boys, and we had dared at each other to camp near Miller's Creek, right by the edge of the forest. The moon was thin that night, just a sliver, barely enough to see by. We were laughing, roasting marshmallows we'd stolen from Eddie's mom's pantry, when Samuel froze and pointed toward the trees. "Do you see that?" he whispered. And we all saw it. A soft, flickering light weaving between the tree trunks, like someone carrying a lantern. At first, we thought it might be Old Man Dobbins, the caretaker who sometimes patrolled the land. But the light was strange. It didn't sway the way a lantern does when someone's walking. It floated, steady, gliding between the trees as if carried by the air itself. "Maybe it's a hunter," Eddie muttered, though he didn't sound convinced. The light paused, almost as if it had heard us. Then it drifted closer. I remember the way the glow touched the edges of the leaves. It was pale, not warm and golden like fire. More like moonlight trapped inside glass. "Let's follow it," Mark said, grinning, always the bravest or most foolish of us. My gut twisted. I remembered my father's warning, and for a moment I wanted to refuse. but none of us wanted to look like cowards. So we left the fire and crept toward the woods.
As we moved deeper, I noticed carvings on some of the trees. Strange symbols, circles and lines that didn't look like anything I'd seen before. They glowed faintly, as if the lantern's presence made them burn from within the bark. Samuel clutched my arm, whispering, "Joe, I don't like this." I didn't either, but the light kept drawing us in, like moths to a flame. At one point, we stopped. The light had paused ahead of us, hovering over a patch of moss-covered rocks. It was as if it wanted us to approach. Eddie, being the boldest, stepped forward. "Hello? Who's there?" he called. His voice echoed strangely, like it was swallowed by the trees. The lantern tilted, rising a little higher, and for the briefest moment I thought I saw a hand beneath it. Thin, bony fingers curled around a handle. But then it was gone, and the light floated free again, swaying gently. Mark laughed nervously. "It's just some trick. Somebody's out here trying to scare us." He bent down to pick up a rock, maybe to throw it and prove the point. But before he could, the light flared brighter, so bright that it painted the trees around us white, casting our shadows in all directions. And then we heard it. A whisper. Not one voice, but many, layered over each other, like 100 people murmuring secrets at once. My knees nearly gave out. Samuel began to cry quietly, pressing his face into my shoulder. Eddie stared, transfixed. He asked, "Do you hear them?" And we did. The whispers weren't in English. They weren't in any language I knew. But deep down, I felt like they were speaking directly to me, calling me, promising something. Then the light began to move again, deeper into the woods. Eddie followed first, like he was hypnotized. Mark hurried after him, still holding that rock in his hand. I grabbed Samuel and tried to hold him back. "We shouldn't go," I whispered. But even as I said it, I felt the pull. The light was so beautiful, so unnatural. That's when I remembered my father's words. "Don't follow it. It's not a man. It's death itself." I wanted to run, but Eddie and Mark were already disappearing into the trees, swallowed by the glow.
Eddie and Mark were swallowed in the glow, their silhouettes shrinking as they followed the light deeper into the woods. I held Samuel tight, but he struggled against me, whispering, "We can't let them go alone." Against my better judgment, I let him pull me forward. Oh, every part of me screamed to turn back. The deeper we went, the colder it became. Summer nights in Kentucky aren't supposed to feel like that. The air smelled damp, like stone and river water, and the fog thickened until I could barely see my own hands. The lantern floated ahead, a pale sun in that suffocating mist, and the whispers grew louder. They weren't outside anymore. They were in my head. It felt like they were burrowing into my thoughts, filling me with voices that weren't mine. We came upon a clearing I'd never seen before. The trees parted, revealing a circle of stones, blackened with age. Carvings covered them, the same strange symbols we'd seen glowing on the trees, only bigger, sharper, like they'd been gouged into the rock with claws. In the center of the stones, the lantern hovered. Eddie and Mark stood frozen beneath it, their faces pale, eyes wide, as if caught in a trance. I called out to them, but my voice came out weak, muffled by the fog. Then the lantern dropped lower, closer to the ground, until it hovered just above the moss. The whisper sharpened, turning into something like a chant. Eddie stepped forward. "Don't!" I hissed, but he didn't hear me. He reached out, his hand trembling, and touched the glow. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the light flared so bright that it blinded me. When my vision cleared, Eddie was gone. Not fallen, not pulled away, just gone. His shoes lay in the moss, smoking as if burned, but there was no trace of him. Mark screamed, stumbling back, his rock dropping from his hand. He grabbed my arm. "Joe, did you see that? He's gone! He's just gone!" The chanting rose higher, faster, echoing inside my skull until I thought my head would split. Samuel began to pray under his breath, the way my grandmother had taught him. But the words seemed to anger whatever was out there. The lantern rose again, floating toward us. I swear I saw something in that light. A shape. A long face, hollow eyes, a mouth that moved in time with the whispers. The Lantern Man. We ran. I don't remember how long or how far, only that the fog clung to us, stretching the trees into endless shadows. At some point, Mark's cries grew faint, then stopped altogether. I turned, and he was gone. One moment at my side, the next swallowed by the mist. Samuel and I stumbled back toward the creek, chasing the faint glow of our abandoned campfire. Behind us, the whispers followed, promising, taunting. I dared one glance over my shoulder and saw the lantern drifting behind us, unhurried, like it knew we could never truly escape.
We burst from the tree line, tumbling into the dirt near the fire pit. The lantern stopped at the edge of the woods. It hovered there for a long time, the whispers fading into silence. Then slowly, it drifted back into the darkness, swallowed by the trees. Samuel and I didn't speak the whole night. At dawn, we searched the woods for Eddie and Mark, but there was no trace, no footprints, no bodies. Nothing but the smoking shoes Eddie had left behind. When we told the sheriff, he shook his head. "Boys disappear in the woods all the time," he said. But my father, he knew. He just put a hand on my shoulder and whispered, "You should never have followed the light." Years passed. Samuel and I tried to bury that night, but the Lantern Man wasn't done with us. When I was 22, I got word that Mark had been found wandering along a dirt road 2 towns over. Except it wasn't really him anymore. He was thin as a scarecrow, hair white, eyes vacant, mumbling the same whispering chant we'd heard that night. They put him in a hospital. He didn't last more than a year. Samuel fared no better. By the time we were in our 30s, he started seeing the light again. He told me it hovered outside his bedroom window, tapping against the glass. I begged him to leave town, to move far away, but he said it didn't matter where he went, the Lantern Man would find him. And he was right.
One autumn morning, Samuel's wife found the bed empty, the sheets still warm, the window was open. He was never seen again. As for me, I tried to run from it too. Moved north, got married, started a family. For a while, I thought I'd escaped, but the lantern never forgets. The first time I saw it again, I was 40, driving home late from work, and I spotted a glow in the tree line beside the road. My heart nearly stopped. It kept pace with me for miles before fading into the dark. I didn't tell my wife. I couldn't.
Since then, it's come and gone. Sometimes years pass without a sign. But then, on a misty night, I'll look out my window and see it hovering by the fence, always watching, always waiting. And now, in these old years of mine, it visits more often. Some nights it hovers closer. Last winter, I woke to find its glow filling the hallway outside my bedroom, as though it had finally stepped inside. I don't know how long I can keep it at bay, but I do know this. Every friend who saw it with me is gone, which means I'm the last. Sometimes I wonder why it spared me, why Eddie vanished in an instant, why Mark withered away, why Samuel was taken in the night, but not me. Maybe it wanted me to grow old, to carry the story, to spread the fear. Or maybe it just enjoys the waiting. I can't tell you how many nights I've sat in my chair, staring through the curtains, praying it won't appear. But then the fog rolls in, and I see that pale glow waving between the trees. It always stops just far enough to remind me it's there, watching, patient. The last time it came, I swear I heard Eddie's voice in the whispers, then Samuel's, calling my name, telling me to come closer. The Lantern Man doesn't just take you, it keeps you. Keeps your soul, your voice trapped inside the light. That's the curse. And I know one of these nights, when I'm too tired, too weak to resist, I'll step outside. And when I do, the last living witness will join the rest. Then the Lantern Man will have us all. If you ever see a light in the woods, floating where no light should be, don't follow it. Don't even look at it too long, because once it notices you, it never lets go.
You have been listening to Midnight FM, and that was Grandpa Joseph, sharing a tale that chills deeper than the night air. The story of the Lantern Man, a wandering glow that lures the curious into eternal silence. It makes you wonder how many of the disappearances we read about in old papers, how many names carved into forgotten gravestones might trace back to that cursed light. Perhaps Eddie, Mark, and Samuel are not alone in the lantern's glow. Perhaps there are hundreds of voices inside it. whispering in the dark. We thank Grandpa Joseph for his courage in reliving something that has haunted him for 60 years. And we thank you, night owls, for staying with us through another hour of shadows. Remember, the next time you see a light flickering outside your window, ask yourself, does it belong to a neighbor or something else entirely?